The call came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was reviewing term sheets in my downtown office. Marcus's voice had that practiced smoothness he used when delivering bad news he'd already decided was reasonable. "Look, Emma, I'm calling about the engagement party Saturday. Sarah and I have been talking and we think it's best if you sit this one out." I leaned back in my chair watching the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. "I see. Her family, they're heavy hitters in the venture capital world. Kleiner Perkins, Sequoia Connections. Her father sits on 3 boards. You understand how appearances matter in these circles." He paused as if waiting for me to argue. When I didn't, he continued. "It's not personal. It's just, you're still doing that nonprofit thing, right? The coding classes for underprivileged kids." "Something like that," I said quietly. "Right. Well, Sarah's crowd, they're all Stanford MBA types, tech founders, Series B and C people. I just don't want you feeling out of place. You know how mom gets when you're uncomfortable at family events." She hovers. "It makes everyone tense." Through my office window I could see the NeuralCore logo on the building across the street. One of my portfolio companies. Their valuation had just hit $2.3 billion. "Marcus, it's fine. I understand. You're taking this really well." He sounded relieved. "I told Sarah you'd be cool about it. She was worried. You know how sisters can get territorial about their brothers." I smiled at that. Sarah Hartwell. I'd read her LinkedIn profile after Marcus first mentioned her. Wharton MBA, 3 years at Goldman Sachs, now a junior associate at her father's mid-tier VC firm. Impressive credentials. She'd probably spent the last 6 months imagining her future sister-in-law as some kind of social liability. "Tell Sarah congratulations from me," I said. "Will do. Hey, maybe we can grab coffee next month? Catch up properly." "Maybe." After he hung up, I returned to the term sheet in front of me. My CFO, David Chin, knocked and entered without waiting for permission. One of the privileges of working together for 8 years. "The Bloomberg interview goes live tonight at 6, he said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. "Pierre wants to know if you've changed your mind about the cover photo. The one where I'm standing in the server room? They think the casual genius in her natural habitat angle plays well. Tech press eats that stuff up." He studied my face. "What's wrong?" "Family stuff." David had been there from the beginning, back when Neuralsphere was just me and 3 MIT dropouts working out of a Cambridge warehouse. He'd watched me build the AI infrastructure that now powered 17 of the Fortune 500's predictive analytics systems. He'd also met my family exactly once at my father's 65th birthday, and spent the entire evening looking confused. "Your brother," he guessed. "Engagement party. I'm uninvited. His fiancée's family are venture capitalists and I'd lower the room's status." David stared at me for 3 full seconds, then started laughing. Not polite laughter, the kind that makes your eyes water. "Stop," I said, but I was smiling too. Emma Caldwell, whose Series C just closed at $180 million, whose AI platform is licensed by Microsoft, Tesla, and the Department of Defense, whose personal net worth Forbes estimated at $340 million last year, that Emma Caldwell would lower the status of a room full of venture capitalists. My family doesn't know about any of that. How is that still possible? It was a fair question. I'd been building Neuralsphere for 9 years. We had 240 employees. Our office took up 4 floors in a downtown high-rise. I'd been featured in TechCrunch, Wired, and The Wall Street Journal. I'd given a keynote at Web Summit in Lisbon. But my family still thought I ran coding workshops for low-income teenagers. I hadn't exactly lied. I did run those workshops, every Saturday morning in our community outreach space. I just hadn't mentioned the multimillion-dollar company that funded them. "They never asked the right questions," I said finally. "And I never volunteered information." The decision to keep Neuralsphere separate from my family had been deliberate. Growing up, success in the Caldwell household meant one thing. Marcus. Marcus the high school valedictorian. Marcus the Princeton graduate. Marcus the corporate lawyer at a white shoe firm pulling in $400,000 a year. When Marcus bought a BMW, Dad called everyone he knew. When Marcus made junior partner, Mom threw a dinner party for 40 people. When I dropped out of MIT 3 months before graduation to launch a startup, Dad stopped returning my calls for 6 months. "You're throwing away a guaranteed future for a fantasy," he'd said the last time we spoke about it. 90% of startups fail, Emma. You're not special enough to beat those odds. So I'd stopped talking about NeuralSphere. I showed up to family dinners in jeans and an old hoodie. I drove my paid-off Honda Civic. When they asked about work, I talked about the coding classes, which were real, and let them assume that was my entire life. Watching them dismiss me became a kind of anthropological study. Mom would sigh about my phase, that had lasted almost a decade. Dad would make pointed comments about real careers and security. Marcus would offer to connect me with contacts who might have entry-level positions in tech support. I took notes. I remembered every dismissive comment, every pitying look, every time they changed the subject when someone asked what I did for work. "You're enjoying this," David said, watching my face. "I'm enjoying building something that matters. The family stuff is just background noise. Background noise that just uninvited you from a party." My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Marcus explained about Saturday. Probably for the best, sweetheart. You can visit me Sunday instead. We'll have a nice quiet lunch, just us." Translation: she agreed I wasn't suitable for the engagement party's elevated company. Another text, this one from Marcus. "Sarah's relieved you understand. She was stressed about the optics. You're a good sister." "The Bloomberg piece goes live in 3 hours," David said, checking his watch. "After that, this whole charade gets a lot harder to maintain." I know. The interview had been scheduled for months. Samantha Wolf, Bloomberg's senior tech correspondent, had spent 6 hours with me last month. We talked about NeuralSphere's architecture, our expansion into predictive modeling for healthcare, the ethical frameworks we'd built around AI decision-making. She'd asked about my background, my journey, what drove me. I'd mentioned being underestimated. I'd mentioned the power of working quietly while others made noise. I'd mentioned my Saturday coding workshops and how teaching kept me grounded. I hadn't mentioned my family. That felt like giving them importance they hadn't earned. "When they find out," David said carefully, "it's going to be ugly." "Probably. You could warn them. Give Marcus a heads up before Saturday." I considered it. Picked up my phone, pulled up Marcus's contact, then set it down again. "No," I said. "They made their assessment of my worth. Let them stand by it." David left to handle the pre-publication communications plan. I returned to work, clearing my schedule for the inevitable chaos that would follow the Bloomberg release. At 6 p.m. my phone started buzzing. By 6:05 it was ringing continuously. The article was magnificent. Samantha had positioned me as exactly what I was. A woman who'd built a transformational company while the tech world's attention was elsewhere. The headline read, "The Invisible Unicorn: How Emma Caldwell Built a $180 million AI Empire While Everyone Was Looking the Other Way." There was a photo of me in our server room, arms crossed, slight smile. The caption noted that NeuralSphere's proprietary algorithms now influenced everything from traffic patterns in major cities to FDA drug approval predictions. The article mentioned my MIT background, how I'd been recruited by every major tech company before dropping out to start NeuralSphere. It detailed our client list: Microsoft, Tesla, Lockheed Martin, Johns Hopkins, the Department of Homeland Security. It included a quote from one of our board members, a former Google VP, calling me the most strategically brilliant founder I've worked with in 30 years. It mentioned the $180 million Series C funding round we'd closed the previous month, led by Andreessen Horowitz and joined by Sequoia Capital. Yes, that's Sequoia, the one Sarah's father supposedly had connections to. And it mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that I still taught coding classes every Saturday to high school students in underserved communities. Because technical excellence without social responsibility is just ego, I'd told Samantha. By 6:30 I had texts from 3 board members, 5 investors, and a dozen journalists requesting interviews. Forbes wanted to schedule a photo shoot. TechCrunch wanted me on their podcast. An executive recruiter informed me that 3 Fortune 100 CEOs had reached out asking if I'd consider board positions. Nothing from my family. I drove home to my brownstone in Cambridge, purchased for $2.3 million 3 years ago, renovated carefully, filled with books and art and the kind of comfortable furniture you buy when you know you'll never need to move. My neighbors thought I was a remote consultant for some vague tech company. They were friendly but incurious, which suited me perfectly. Thursday morning I taught my regular coding class. 16 students, ages 14 to 18, learning Python and basic machine learning concepts. This was the part of my week I protected fiercely, the thing that kept me connected to why I'd started Neuralsphere in the first place. Technology should be accessible. Success should lift others. Power should be used to open doors, not close them. The kids knew I worked in tech. A few had seen the Bloomberg article. One of their teachers had sent it around as an inspirational example. "Ms. Caldwell," Janaya asked during break, "is that really you? The article said your company is worth hundreds of millions of dollars." "The company's worth that much," I clarified. "I just built it." "But you're actually rich?" "I'm comfortable," I said carefully. "And I still show up here every Saturday because this matters more than any amount of money." Marcus called that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, listen. Someone at Sarah's firm sent around this Bloomberg article and there's a woman in it named Emma Caldwell. Same name as you, right? Weird coincidence. Anyway, call me back." I deleted the voicemail without responding. Friday my mother called. I answered because she rarely called during work hours. "Emma, the strangest thing. Your father's golf partner mentioned seeing an article about an Emma Caldwell who runs some big tech company. We told him it must be a different person, but he seemed quite sure. He even showed us a photo on his phone and Bill swears it looked just like you." "Mom, I'm in a meeting." "Of course, dear. We just thought it was funny. Imagine if it actually was you." She laughed at the absurdity. I hung up without commenting. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and temperatures in the mid-60s, perfect engagement party weather. I taught my coding class, went for a run along the Charles River, and spent the afternoon reading acquisition proposals from two companies interested in purchasing minority stakes in Neuralsphere. At 6 p.m., Marcus's engagement party began at the Four Seasons overlooking Boston Harbor. I wasn't there, of course. I was at home, making pasta and watching the early returns on Neuralsphere's newest contract, a $43 million deal with the European Union for climate prediction modeling. My phone started ringing at 7:30. "Marcus, Emma, where are you?" I let it go to voicemail. Text from Marcus. "People here are asking about you. Sarah's father knows about Neuralsphere. He wants to meet you. This is insane." Text from Mom. "Emma Jean Caldwell, Marcus says there are investors at this party who want to talk to you about your company." "What company? Call me immediately." Text from Dad. "I'm hearing things that don't make sense. Call your mother." I poured a glass of wine and reviewed the latest performance metrics from our healthcare division. Revenue was up 34% quarter-over-quarter. Our predictive model for ICU patient deterioration had just been adopted by 6 additional hospital systems. The texts escalated. "Marcus, Sarah's father is asking why you're not here. He says Sequoia was part of your Series C. Sequoia, Emma. He's on their advisory board. He wants to know why his future sister-in-law didn't tell him she's running a major AI company." "Mom, Paul Hartwell just told me you're worth $300 million. This is absurd. Please call and clear this up." "Marcus, everyone here has read the Bloomberg article. Sarah is mortified. Her father keeps asking why we didn't tell him about you. I didn't know about you." "What the hell, Em?" I finished my pasta, cleaned the kitchen, opened my laptop to do some weekend work. At 8:45 my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Marcus standing on my front steps in his engagement party suit, tie loosened, expression somewhere between fury and panic. I opened the door. "You let me uninvite you," he said without preamble. You knew Sarah's father would be there. You knew Sequoia was involved in your funding. You let me tell you that you'd lower the room's status." "You did tell me that," I confirmed. "The entire party is talking about you. Paul Hartwell spent 20 minutes telling everyone how Sequoia fought to get into your Series C. He showed people the Forbes estimate of your net worth. He said you've revolutionized predictive AI. Sarah's uncle is on Microsoft's board. He says your platform is mission-critical for their enterprise division." I leaned against the doorframe. And you let me exclude you from my engagement party because I thought you were too unsuccessful to be there." "I didn't let you do anything, Marcus. You made that decision based on your assessment of my value. I just didn't correct your math." His face cycled through several expressions before landing on outrage. "This is cruel. You deliberately embarrassed me. I wasn't at your party. How did I embarrass you?" "By not telling me. By letting everyone think I didn't know my own sister runs a Fortune 500 adjacent company. Paul Hartwell asked Sarah why she didn't leverage the family connection when approaching Sequoia. She had no idea what he meant. Do you know how that looks? It looks like you made assumptions without facts. It looks like you valued your fiancé's family connections more than your actual family. It looks like you decided I was worthless without ever asking what I was worth. That's not fair. You told me my presence would be awkward. That I'd lower the status of the room. That Sarah's family were heavy hitters and I was. What was the implication? A charity case. An embarrassment. Marcus opened his mouth then closed it. He had, after all, said exactly that. You could have told me years ago, he said finally, his voice quieter. Why didn't you? Because 9 years ago when I dropped out of MIT to start this company, Dad said I wasn't special enough to beat the startup odds. When I tried to talk about my work, Mom changed the subject. When I achieved something, no one asked for details. You offered to get me entry-level tech support positions, Marcus. For 8 years, you've been offering me entry-level positions while I was building a company that now employs 240 people. We didn't know. You didn't ask. There's a difference. I straightened. I teach coding to teenagers every Saturday morning. You all knew that. Did any of you ever ask where I taught? Who funded it? How a nonprofit could afford a 4,000 square foot space in Cambridge? Did you ask why Bloomberg wanted to interview me? Why Forbes kept calling? He said nothing. You saw what you wanted to see. I wasn't hiding. I was watching. I was taking notes on every dismissive comment, every pitying look, every time you assumed I was failing because I wasn't performing success the way you expected. That's... He struggled for words. That's calculated. Yes. It was. I smiled slightly. You taught me something valuable, Marcus. You taught me that people reveal their true values when they think there's no consequence for it. You showed me exactly how you measure worth. You made it very clear where I ranked in your hierarchy. Jesus, Emma. He dragged a hand through his hair. Mom's having a breakdown. Dad's on the phone with his golf partner trying to get details. Sarah's father wants to have dinner with you next week. He's talking about investment opportunities. Sarah's been crying in the bathroom for 30 minutes. Her uncle keeps asking how we could not know. This is a disaster. For you, I observed. Not for me. What do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry I didn't ask. I'm sorry I uninvited you. Is that enough? I considered the question seriously. Thought about 9 years of dismissed accomplishments. Thought about Dad telling me I wasn't special enough. Thought about Mom's patient sighs over my phase. Thought about Marcus's offers of entry-level positions and his relief when I agreed not to attend his engagement party. The apology is a start, I said. But it doesn't undo the assessment. You thought I was worthless enough to exclude from your celebration. That belief shaped your decision. The fact that you were wrong about my net worth doesn't change what you believed about my worth as a person. That's not... He stopped. I never thought you were worthless. You thought I was embarrassing. Awkward. Low status. Someone who would drag down the room's caliber. I shook my head. Those were your words, Marcus. You said my presence would be problematic around venture capitalists. Turns out venture capitalists are pretty comfortable around someone who just closed a $180 million Series C. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, grimaced. Sarah wants to know if you'll come to the party now. Her father wants to introduce you to some people. No. Emma. I wasn't suitable for the party when you thought I was a failed MIT dropout teaching coding classes. I'm not suddenly suitable now that you've learned I'm worth something in dollars. My value didn't change. Your perception did. That's your problem, not mine. So what, you're just going to cut us off? Never speak to the family again? I'll speak to you when you say something worth hearing. When Mom stops calling my career a phase. When Dad stops offering advice on job security. When you stop measuring my worth in terms of whether I embarrass you. I started to close the door. Wait, Marcus said. Sarah's father, he really does want to meet you. He's talking about Sequoia potentially funding your Series D. He knows people at Kleiner Perkins at Benchmark. This could be important for your company. I paused, smiled. Marcus, Sequoia already has our contact information. If Paul Hartwell wants to discuss future funding, he can reach out through our CFO like everyone else. I don't need my brother's fiancé's father's connections. That's what you never understood. I never needed what you had. I built my own. His phone rang. He looked at me. It's Sarah. You should answer. It's your engagement party after all. Emma. Congratulations on your engagement, Marcus. I hope you and Sarah are very happy together. I really do. I closed the door gently but firmly. Through the security camera, I watched him stand on my steps for another minute before finally answering his phone and walking back to his car. Inside, my phone was buzzing with messages. Mom wanted to talk. Dad wanted explanations. Marcus wanted me to reconsider. Sarah. I had a text from a number I didn't recognize introducing herself as Sarah Hartwell and apologizing for the misunderstanding. There was also a message from Paul Hartwell himself sent through LinkedIn. Ms. Caldwell, I'm mortified by my daughter's family's treatment of you this week. I've been following Neuralsphere's progress for 2 years. Would very much like to discuss future collaboration. My apologies for the circumstances of this introduction. Paul Hartwell. I responded, Mr. Hartwell, thank you for reaching out. Please contact David Chin, our CFO, to schedule a formal meeting. Looking forward to discussing Neuralsphere's trajectory. Best regards, Emma. Professional. Clean. No acknowledgement of the family connection. Sunday morning I taught my coding class. Janaya had made significant progress on her machine learning project, a model to predict optimal bus routes based on ridership patterns. I spent extra time with her, explaining the mathematics behind gradient descent, watching her face light up as the concepts clicked. This was success. Not the money, not the Bloomberg profile, not the revenge of watching Marcus squirm at his engagement party. This, passing knowledge to someone hungry for it, watching curiosity transform into competence, knowing that 16 students would leave my class with skills that could change their trajectories. Monday morning, David arrived at my office with coffee and a knowing look. So, he said, how was your weekend? Quiet. Productive. Your brother called our main line Saturday night. Left a message asking for me to call him about the family situation. Don't. Wasn't planning to. He sipped his coffee. Paul Hartwell's office called this morning. Wants to schedule lunch. I told them we'd review our calendar and get back to them. Make him wait a week. We're not desperate. Never thought we were. He paused. Your family's going to keep calling. Probably. Eventually you'll have to talk to them. Eventually, I agreed. When they're ready to have an actual conversation instead of trying to retrofit me into a narrative that makes them feel better about their assumptions. David nodded. He understood. He'd been there when Neuralsphere was just a concept and a warehouse lease. He'd watched me work 18-hour days, sleep on a cot in the office, exist on coffee and determination. He'd seen me rebuild our core algorithm from scratch when the first version failed. He'd been in the room when we landed our first Fortune 500 client. He knew this company wasn't luck or timing. It was relentless, strategic, calculated work. The same kind of calculation that had let me watch my family dismiss me for 9 years while I built something undeniable. You're not cruel, he said quietly. You're just done pretending their perception matters more than reality. Exactly. A week later, Marcus showed up at my office. He'd apparently charmed his way past security by dropping Paul Hartwell's name. David escorted him up personally, more out of curiosity than courtesy. Marcus looked around my space. The corner office with city views, the minimalist aesthetic, the wall of achievements and patents, the photo of me shaking hands with the Secretary of Commerce. This is what you do, he said. This is what you've been doing. Yes. You really teach coding classes every Saturday? Every single Saturday for 7 years. Same kids, watching them grow. 3 of my former students are now studying computer science at MIT. 2 are at Stanford. 1 just got accepted to the Google internship program. He absorbed that. I owe you a better apology than the one I gave at your door. Probably. I'm trying to understand why you let it go on so long. Why you didn't just tell us. I leaned back in my chair. 9 years ago, I needed to know who would believe in me when I had nothing but potential. Who would support the work, not just the outcome. I got my answer. That's harsh. That's honest. I met his eyes. David Chin believed in me when Neuralsphere was 3 people in a warehouse. My first investors believed in me when we had no revenue and an untested product. My team believed in me through 2 failed pivots and a near bankruptcy. You know who never believed in me? The people who shared my DNA. We would have. No. You would have believed in the MIT degree if I'd finished it. You would have believed in a corporate job at a recognizable company. You would have believed in conventional markers of success. You never would have believed in a 22-year-old dropout with a dream and a whiteboard full of algorithms. Marcus sat down uninvited. Sarah called off the engagement. I blinked. What? Last Tuesday. She said the situation showed fundamental differences in values. Her father agreed. Paul Hartwell told her that a family that could overlook someone like you in their midst wasn't the family he wanted his daughter marrying into. I processed that. Marcus, I'm sorry. Don't be. She was right. He looked exhausted. I've spent the last week thinking about every conversation we've had in the past 9 years. Every time you tried to tell me about your work and I changed the subject. Every time I offered to help you find a real job. Every time I compared you to my success and felt superior. Marcus. I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm here because I need to understand something. He leaned forward. Did you enjoy it? Watching me make a fool of myself. I considered lying. Decided he'd earned honesty. Parts of it, yes. Saturday night when you showed up at my door furious because your assessment of me was wrong. That was satisfying. Watching you realize that every pitying comment, every dismissive assumption, was about your limitations, not mine. Yes, I enjoyed that. He flinched but nodded. Fair enough. But Marcus, I didn't build NeuralSphere to spite you. I built it because I saw a problem I could solve. I kept it secret because I needed to work without the weight of family expectations and assumptions. The fact that it also revealed who you really are, that was a side benefit. Who am I? Someone who measures worth in conventional metrics. Someone who values appearance over substance. Someone who can love his sister but not respect her. I softened slightly. You're not a bad person, Marcus. You're just limited by your own definitions of success. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city. I told Mom and Dad everything. Showed them the Bloomberg article, the Forbes estimate, explained what you've built. Dad cried. I've never seen him cry. What did he say? That he failed you. That he should have asked more questions, shown more interest, believed in you when it mattered. Something in my chest tightened. I pushed it away. What do you want, Marcus? Why are you here? To tell you that we were wrong. Completely, fundamentally wrong. To ask if there's any path back to being your family. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm not interested in a relationship based on my net worth. I'm not interested in suddenly being valued because I'm successful in terms you recognize. If you want to be my family again, it has to be because you actually see me, not because Bloomberg told you who I am. How do we do that? Start by asking questions instead of making assumptions. Show up for things that matter, like my Saturday coding classes. Learn about my work not because it's impressive but because it's mine. Stop measuring my worth in terms of how I reflect on you. Marcus nodded slowly. I can try. Trying is good. Results are better. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. Yes, I agreed. You should have. After he left, David appeared in the doorway. That was surprisingly mature, he observed. He got dumped and publicly humiliated. Tends to inspire reflection. Are you going to let them back in? I thought about it. Thought about Saturday mornings with my students, about building something meaningful, about the people who'd believed in me when belief was all I needed. Maybe, I said. On my terms. If they earn it. Good boundaries. I learned from the best. I smiled at him. We've got the EU presentation next week. Ready. Always. We returned to work, to the actual substance of success. Solving problems, building systems, creating value. The family drama was background noise again, as it should be. 3 months later, my parents attended one of my Saturday coding classes. They sat in the back, watching quietly as I helped Janaya debug her neural network implementation. Afterward, Dad shook hands with every student, asked about their projects, listened to their dreams. You're good at this, he said to me as we walked to the parking lot. I know. He stopped walking. I need to say something I should have said 9 years ago. I was wrong. I was wrong about you dropping out, wrong about your potential, wrong about what matters. You didn't just beat the startup odds. You revolutionized an entire sector. And more importantly, you used your success to lift others. That's who you are. I missed it because I was looking for something else. What were you looking for? A version of success I understood. The version I achieved. I wanted you to be safe, secure, conventional. I didn't trust you to create your own definition. He met my eyes. I'm sorry. You deserved a father who believed in you without proof. It wasn't enough to undo 9 years. But it was a start. Come next Saturday, I said. Janaya's presenting her final project. She's brilliant, and she needs people to see her brilliance. I'll be there. He was. And the Saturday after that. And the one after that. Marcus attended too, bringing coffee for everyone and asking smart questions about machine learning applications. He was genuinely trying to understand the work rather than the outcome. Mom took longer. She struggled with reframing her understanding of who I was. But she showed up eventually, baking cookies for the students, learning their names, watching with wonder as they coded solutions to problems she couldn't understand. 6 months after the engagement party, Paul Hartwell and I finalized a strategic partnership between Neuralsphere and a consortium of firms including Sequoia. Not because of family connections but because our technology aligned with their portfolio needs. Sarah sent me a LinkedIn message. I hope you know my father didn't end things because of your net worth. He ended things because he saw how my family treated you when they thought you were unsuccessful. He taught me that character shows most clearly in how we treat people we think can't help us. I'm sorry for my part in that situation. I hope your family has learned what he tried to teach me. I responded, thank you for the apology. I hope you find someone whose family deserves you. She deserved that. Whatever her flaws, she'd been willing to learn. A year after Bloomberg published the profile, Forbes invited me to speak at their Under 30 Summit. They wanted me to talk about building success while being systematically underestimated. I stood on that stage and told the truth. My family thought I was a failure for almost a decade. They measured my worth by their standards and found me wanting. And that was the greatest gift they could have given me. Because it forced me to define success for myself. Not in terms of their approval or recognition, but in terms of impact and purpose. I paused, looked out at hundreds of young founders and entrepreneurs. You will be underestimated. People will mistake your quiet work for lack of ambition. They'll confuse your unconventional path with failure. Let them. Build anyway. Create value, solve problems, lift others. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about building something so undeniable that their opinions become irrelevant. The audience stood. Not because I was worth $340 million, but because I'd said something true. Afterward, my family waited backstage. Dad hugged me fiercely. Mom cried. Marcus said, I'm learning. Still learning, but I'm trying. I know, I said. I see you trying. That counts. We went to dinner at a small Italian place where nobody cared about net worth or Bloomberg profiles. We talked about Janaya's acceptance to MIT, about Marcus's new job at a nonprofit law clinic, about Mom's volunteer work with literacy programs. We talked about the work, not the outcome. The purpose, not the profit. It wasn't perfect. Some wounds take longer to heal than others. But it was honest, and that mattered more than any amount of money or recognition. Late that night, back in my brownstone, I sat at my desk and looked at the framed photo on my wall. Me and my first 16 coding students 7 years ago, all of us grinning like we'd discovered something precious. That photo wasn't worth $180 million. But it was worth infinitely more than my family's belated approval. I'd built something meaningful while they weren't looking. And in the end, that was its own perfect revenge.